triggering extensive discussions among netizens. A report from Japan's Sankei Shimbun spread to China, triggering extensive discussions among netizens. The report claimed, at an international conference recently held in Japan, Japan continued to provoke and interfere with my country's great cause of reunification and the situation in the Taiwan Strait. Chinese officials couldn't bear it and fought back forcefully. A Chinese official said, if China supports Ryukyu's independence because Ryukyu is part of the Chinese cultural circle, how does Japan feel? After being hit at the death spot of Ryukyu, Japanese officials panicked immediately, and a congressman hurriedly said, Ryukyu will not become independent. Immediately, the arrogance of Japanese officials on the situation in the Taiwan Strait all subsided. When this news spread to China, netizens praised it greatly, but I read most of the comments, and the mainstream view is, if Japan supports Taiwan independence, we will support the independence of Ryukyu. If we don't want to mention Ryukyu, it will be in the Taiwan Strait. Shut up. Ryukyu is Japan's Achilles heel and weakness, and it is right for my country to put it on the negotiating table of the Sino-Japanese confrontation. However, using Ryukyu as a bargaining chip to make Japan shut up in the Taiwan Strait is a bit of a loss. Because Taiwan has belonged to China since ancient times, and Ryukyu has not belonged to Japan since ancient times. Taiwan has to come back. Ryukyu, legally and logically, should have been independent. Using not supporting Ryukyu independence in exchange for Japan's not supporting Taiwan independence is obviously a huge loss for our country. Our position should be Taiwan's return, the reunification of the motherland is the red line, and Japan's provocations and transactions are not allowed. At the same time, Ryukyu does not belong to Japan. This is clearly stated in the Cairo Declaration and the Potsdam Proclamation. Ryukyu does not belong to Japan. This is part of the post-war rules and order. The United States and the West have been clamoring for China to abide by the rules-based international order after World War II, so making Ryukyu independent is part of the post-World War II order. Therefore, Ryukyu does not belong to Japan. We should not hide it, but we should talk about it openly and loudly. Many netizens dare not shout, or even support the country to shout. They think that supporting the independence of Ryukyu seems to violate the two big taboos of interfering in Japan's internal affairs and disrespecting Japan's territorial integrity. It seems that we are too aggressive. It is normal to have these thoughts, because in the past few decades, our country has introduced too little about the history and current situation of Ryukyu. We need to clarify a concept. Ryukyu has not belonged to Japan since ancient times. In today's world, there has never been any international law or international treaty to support Japan's sovereignty over Ryukyu, so Ryukyu is not Japan's internal affairs at all. In the past few hundred years, from the Ming dynasty to the Qing dynasty, the Ryukyu kingdom has always voluntarily become a subsidiary country of the Central Plains dynasty. The change of the king of the Ryukyu kingdom requires the canonization of the Central Plains dynasty. The year of the Ryukyu kingdom also chose to use the year name of the Central Plains dynasty. Japan did not invade and encroach on the Ryukyu kingdom in stages until modern times from 1870 to 1879. At that time, Japan asked Ryukyu to cancel its tributary relationship with the Qing dynasty, but the Ryukyu kingdom clearly refused. The then Ryukyu lord wrote a secret letter to ask the envoy to bring the special envoy to the capital of the Qing dynasty, hoping that the Qing dynasty would send troops to drive away the Japanese invaders. It's a pity that the Qing dynasty at that time was already in the twilight years of the empire, and it had long been turned into a semi-colonial country by several wars by Western powers, and it had no spare energy to take care of the little brother of the past. Japan finally completely occupied Ryukyu in 1879 and massacred the Aborigines in the Ryukyu country. From 1879 to the end of World War II in 1945, although Japan ruled the old land of the Ryukyu kingdom for more than 60 years, it has always been governed as an aggressor and occupier. No country in the international community recognizes Japan's sovereignty over Ryukyu, nor does any international treaty support Japan's sovereignty over Ryukyu. After the end of World War II, according to the Cairo Declaration and Potsdam Proclamation, it was clarified that Japan's inherent territory was only the 4 islands of Honshu. Therefore, the United Nations entrusted the United States to manage Ryukyu as an escrow. Therefore, after World War II, the management of Ryukyu by the United States for more than 20 years was only a steward role of agent management. The United States does not have the sovereignty over Ryukyu, let alone the right to dispose of Ryukyu's sovereignty. Today, in the international community, when Japan mentions Ryukyu, It jumps 3 feet high, holding up the San Francisco Peace Treaty and the Return of Okinawa Agreement signed with the United States. But even in the Return to Okinawa Agreement signed by the United States made it very clear that the United Nations entrusted the United States to manage Ryukyu for more than 20 years. It is called administrative power, or administrative power for short. The general consensus of the international community today is two. First, the bilateral agreement signed by the two countries has no right to determine the ownership of the Ryukyu land managed by the United Nations. The agreement between the two countries has no international credibility. Second, even if all countries in the world acquiesce in returning the Okinawa Agreement, what the United States returns is only the governing power of Ryukyu, not sovereignty. Therefore, in the past 50 years, Japan has only had administrative power but no sovereignty over Ryukyu. Japan has picked up a big deal by itself, which is equivalent to stealing Ryukyu under the eyes of the international community. If it doesn't hide and laugh, it will openly intervene in the situation in my country's Taiwan Strait, then we will have a showdown. Many people believe that our country's pointing out Ryukyu is to make Japan be restrained. As long as Japan backs off on the Taiwan Strait issue, we will not mention it in Ryukyu. I think this way of thinking is wrong. This kind of compromise thinking should not be what China should have in the new era. Back then, the Qing government did not dare to send troops to intervene in Japan's occupation of Ryukyu because of the ostrich attitude of not messing with Japan, and Japan not following other powers to bully me. On November 20, 1880, on the street in front of the Prime Minister's office of the Qing government, a righteous man committed suicide heroically in the second year after Japan officially annihilated the Ryukyu kingdom and massacred Ryukyu citizens. Before the martyr committed suicide, he left a deadly poem. How many people are loyal and filial in ancient times? I have been worrying about my country and my family for 5 years. When you die, you will still live in the community. Jiaotang only relies on Brother Xian. The name of this martyr is Lin Shigong, and he is the special envoy of Ryukyu. As early as 1876, when Japan encroached on the Ryukyu kingdom and the Ryukyu kingdom was in a precarious state, the lord of the Ryukyu kingdom wrote a secret letter and handed it to Lin Shigong, asking him to go to the Qing dynasty for help. After Lin Shigong came to the Qing dynasty, he ran up and down, begging for help all over the world, and after 5 years of begging, the Qing dynasty was unable to intervene, and Ryukyu fell. Faced with the ruin of the country and the lack of reinforcements from the sovereign country, Lin Shigong could only self-determine it in front of the Prime Minister's office of the Qing dynasty, hoping to wake up this sleeping eastern lion. The helplessness and sadness of Lin Shigong before his self-determination can be seen from the Ryukyu people's dependence and sense of belonging to the celestial kingdom. The Qing dynasty, which was on the verge of subjugation, was unable to rescue Ryukyu, but still praised Lin Shigong as a model of loyal minister and righteous man. Back then, the Manchu Qing defeated Lin Shigong, and China today should not lose the Ryukyu again. I suggest that my country's foreign policy towards Ryukyu can still insist on the status of Ryukyu is undecided. But the status has not been determined here. There is a major premise, that is, Ryukyu has not belonged to Japan since ancient times, and it will not belong to Japan from now on. The status of Ryukyu is undecided, which lies in whether Ryukyu should be independent, or in the future, I will admire the heavenly kingdom, and the public will strongly demand to belong to China in the future. Although some more fanatical netizens in China hope to succeed in one step, from the perspective of international law and history since ancient times, Ryukyu does not belong to Japan or China, but is just a vassal state of China. If my country openly interacts with the international community with the position of once a vassal state, now it is part of China, then there are too many countries that have claimed vassal and tribute in history, and it is not appropriate for neighboring countries to resist at this stage. Whether Ryukyu will be subordinated or independent in the future can be handed over to the future, which belongs to undecided status, but in any case, Ryukyu does not belong to Japan, this is certain, and it will not be traded with Japan's Taiwan Strait policy. From today onwards, our country should promote Lin Shigong vigorously from the government to the people, from film and television works to textbooks. He is at least a national hero of the Ryukyu people. Today's Chinese sons and daughters can pay homage to Lin Shigong's blood only by using immortal merit. Ryukyu must not be regarded as a temporary worker for Taiwan Strait negotiations with Japan. It is stated in advance that this conspiracy has been jointly resolved by China and Russia through a treaty in black and white. More on that later in this article. Let's first look at the news in May 2022. From May 22nd to 28th, the 75th meeting of the World Health Assembly was held in Geneva, Switzerland. The meeting discussed the amendments to the international health regulations. This so-called discussion is actually an extremely fierce struggle. Before the meeting was held, there was a lot of voices at home and abroad, and many friends strongly urged their government to refuse to sign this pandemic clause. Once the clause is signed, it will lead to signatory countries surrendering part of their national sovereignty, the WHO will override their own public health sovereignty and civil rights, and leave the world at the mercy of one big government. The appeals and denunciations of many patriotic people finally played a curt role in resisting the WHO's attempt to establish a big government. The pandemic clause was not passed. The amendment, proposed by the Democratic Party of the United States, proposes 13 controversial amendments to the original international health regulations. Official representatives of wealthy developed countries such as Australia, the United Kingdom and the United States strongly supported the amendment and urged other countries to join them in signing away national sovereignty. However, the amendment was strongly resisted by many participating countries. On May 25th, the first indication that events were unlikely to proceed in the direction the Masons were pushing. First, unexpectedly, many African countries took the lead in refusing to sign the clause. The African country Botswana read out a statement on behalf of its 47 African member states, declaring that they would collectively stop supporting the amendment. Many African member states expressed strong concern and dissatisfaction with this. Subsequently, the representatives of China and Russia strongly voiced their opposition to the WHO amendment. Under the influence of China and Russia, many other countries have also stated that they do not support the WHO amendment. These countries include Brazil, India, South Africa, Iran, and Malaysia. In particular, Brazil has made it clear that it will completely withdraw from the WHO and will never allow its people to be overridden by the WHO. In the end, the WHO and its supporters, the United States, Britain, and France, were forced to make concessions and shelve the WHO amendment. What is the pandemic clause? It includes mandatory quarantine, compulsory vaccination, mandatory contact tracing, mandatory health checks, globally controlled by one government. To put it bluntly, international forces want to use the hands of the WHO. Under the so-called pandemic situation, the medical sovereignty and anti-epidemic sovereignty of all countries are under the control of the WHO. This is actually a shocking conspiracy by the Freemasons, starting from the fields of medical treatment and epidemic prevention, and gradually publicly manipulating the sovereignty of various countries. In a word, the WHO pandemic treaty would override the public health sovereignty and civil rights of 194 countries, leaving the world at the mercy of one big government. At the beginning, the eight-power Allied forces could only interfere with China's sovereignty by burning, killing, and looting. When Japan invaded China, it also killed hundreds of thousands or millions of people before it substantially seized China's sovereignty. Today, the international powers actually fantasize about controlling China's sovereignty with a single treaty. What a wishful dream. Everyone knows that this year, China's economy has achieved overwhelming results compared with other countries in the world. For example, Japan and South Korea, which had trade surpluses with China for decades, both ran deficits this year. China's economy this year can be described as a unique scene here. The reason for such a good situation is inseparable from the central government's timely transformation of the Class B and A management policy into the B&B management policy. But if the sovereignty of the anti-epidemic policy is in the hands of international forces, what will they do? There is no doubt that demon mobs will emerge. At that time, the Chinese economy will suffer. Under the circumstances that China and Russia took the lead in rejecting it, it was unexpected that international forces would make a comeback at the WHO General Assembly in 2023. Almost again a few days after May 25th, they brought up the topic of world sovereignty again. In order to avoid repeating the mistakes of last year, the international forces have changed their approach, first strengthening the authority of the main body of the WHO, so that it can make decisions on mandatory vaccination and mandatory isolation in emergency situations. At the same time, the World Health Organization and Bill Gates also agreed that there will be more deadly viruses in the near future, and they are full of intentions to try again and are determined to win. China and Russia have long been prepared for this. As early as March this year, when Chinese leaders visited Russia, there was one item in the joint statement on deepening the comprehensive strategic cooperative partnership in the new era as a result of their cooperation. The two sides will continue to carry out cooperation in health and epidemic prevention to deal with the threat of the epidemic. The two sides will jointly oppose attempts to limit the sovereign rights of countries in the prevention and control of infectious diseases, early warning, and response to biological threats by forming a legally binding mechanism within the framework of international organizations. This article is a rare strong statement issued by China in response to serious problems that international organizations may cause. It means, it is true that some forces, in the hands of the WHO, use the so-called international law and international treaties to override the sovereignty of countries. Its primary purpose is to seize the power of prevention and early warning of infectious diseases in various countries, as well as the sovereign power of countering biological warfare. China and Russia maintain a high degree of vigilance against such plots and are determined to jointly prevent such plots. Obviously, international forces felt that Russia was in the way and hindered their plot, so they took measures. On May 15, WHO announced the official closure of the organization's Moscow office. This effectively expelled Russia from WHO membership. It's just that the formal expulsion needs to be voted by the member states. If it is put to a vote, it cannot be successful. That's why we resorted to the insidious means of closing offices. The general media's interpretation of this matter is that the main reason is that Russia released the evidence of the United States research on the new coronavirus from the Ukrainian biological laboratory to the public, and gave the evidence to the World Health Organization and the United Nations. The two organizations ignored it and refused. Sent people to investigate the U.S. biological laboratory in Ukraine. However, Ryukyu believes that the more important reason is that international forces are trying to kick Russia out of the WHO in order to implement a super conspiracy plan to seize the sovereignty of countries around the world. Sure enough, on May 17, the Russian State Duma stated that it would discuss the possibility of Russia withdrawing from the World Trade Organization and the World Health Organization. This expresses Russia's strong dissatisfaction with the WHO. What is particularly interesting is that, just before the annual meeting of the WHO, at the European Summit, someone bitterly revealed that the new crown originated from the drug production and release by the United States. The message is as follows. Recently, heavy news came from the Third International New Crown Summit organized by the European Parliament in Brussels, the capital of Belgium. An American pointed out in his speech that the new crown virus was made and released by the United States to launch biological warfare and provide vaccines. The company makes a profit. The American named Martin is said to be an expert and the owner of an American company. At the beginning of his speech, he pointed out that he had warned people all over the world more than 10 years ago that the weaponization of nature had dire consequences for human beings. Martin played slides on the spot, all of which were facts, official and public reports, data, and official explanations of the U.S. government. The first fact is that the coronavirus was actually isolated by the United States as early as 1965. The United States used and even modified the coronavirus for various reasons. The second fact is that in 1966, the United States and the United Kingdom established the first transatlantic coronavirus data sharing experiment, and the United States and the United Kingdom started the coronavirus experiment. This is a long-planned thing. The third fact is that in 1967, the United States violated the Biological and Chemical Weapons Treaty and conducted the first coronavirus experiment on humans. The news is omitted below. What we have to reflect on now is that since the virus was created by the Americans and managed to spread it, then they manipulated the WHO to use the so-called new regulations and agreements to manipulate the sovereignty of various countries. Is this a series of calculations? If it doesn't work this year, next year, the year after, and the year after that, will international forces continue to make and distribute drugs, and then use authoritative experts in various countries to spread their opinions, manipulate WHO issues for themselves, and control the sovereignty of various countries? What about the new demon moth? It should be pointed out that these plots are extremely deep and sinister. China has a deep insight into its treachery and is taking all-round measures. Tomorrow we will write about what measures China has taken in other areas. End. Recommended reading. Click title to read. Cancer patients and family members can join the group communication. He was known as the General of Ever Victorious because he used his troops like a god and won by surprise. Bosman admired him. Bosman said he was good at fighting immortal battles, and Chairman Mao said he was the best at leading troops in war. He is Suyu, and nearly half of the 57 founding generals in the founding ceremony were his subordinates. Figure Suyu. A general who can lead such a luxurious lineup, why can't he be judged as a marshal? 01. Suyu was born in a landlord family in Hunan. His grandfather once owned more than 400 dan of grain fields equivalent to 120 mu of cultivated land. In addition to farming, Suyu's grandfather also had a timber business. Suyu's father is a failed scholar. Because of his rich family background, he doesn't have to work in the fields. He practiced calligraphy, composed poems and couplets every day, and hang out with a group of friends every day. Suyu has 5 brothers and sisters, and Suyu is the 3rd eldest in the family. Suyu's father likes to dance and write, but the young Suyu is completely different from his father. He has been lively and active since he was a child. He likes to dance knives and sticks, do handicrafts, and even make tickling bamboo chips for his mother. His mother especially loves him and named him it is called Ji, which means to inherit the foundation of the family. If Suyu followed the route his parents had planned for him and became his rich son, his life would be relatively smooth, but Suyu just couldn't be content with the status quo. Figure young Suyu. He played with the family's hired worker Atuo since he was a child. Under the leadership of Atuo, he went up the mountain to pick tube seeds, learned how to cut hair and mend clothes, and he didn't look like a young master at all. When Suyu was 9 years old, with the death of his grandfather, his family began to decline. Under the auspices of the uncles, the grandfather's property was divided up, and Suyu's family of 8 only got 30 mu of land. At that time, there were too many people and too little land, and the harvest in the fields was not good. Coupled with banditry, Suyu had to move to Huatong City with his father. In Huatong City, the family owed more than 100 silver dollars to buy real estate, which made the already struggling family worse. Suyu often eats with hot and sour peppers and dried vegetables. When the children are devouring, Suyu's mother will take the trouble to remind the children, look at the food and eat. Sometimes what you lose, God will compensate you in another way. 02. Although Suyu lost the comfortable life of a rich young master, he met kind-hearted people at the bottom in Huatong County, such as the workers who moved bricks with him, and the shop assistants who sold daily necessities. Infected by their kindness, thoughts have also changed accordingly. Although the family was struggling, his father, who valued education, was frugal and sent Suyu to the Huatong County Higher Primary School, where Suyu not only came into contact with advanced cultural knowledge, but also learned about Sun Yat-sen's 3 principles of the people in Chinese class. After going to school for several years, his father saw that Suyu was good enough, so he imposed the responsibility of housekeeping and bookkeeping on Suyu. Suyu had to do a lot of chores of purchasing and managing accounts every day, so that he asked for leave every 3 days, and his grades plummeted. Suyu began to resist managing accounts and asked to concentrate on studying. But his father ignored his resistance and arranged a marriage for him. The other party's surname was Wu, who was 2 years older than Suyu. The rules and regulations of the old family collided with Suyu's rebellious thoughts time and time again. Suyu thought about it and wanted to venture outside while he was young. At this time, Suyu took the exam with the attitude of giving it a try, and was admitted to the Hunan Provincial Second Normal School in Chang. Figure former site of Hunan Provincial Second Normal School. But his family objected to him studying outside alone, so he had to choose to run away from home. In 1924, 16-year-old Suyu walked 55 kilometers. Halfway there, he found that the travel expenses were not enough, so he had to write a letter to his family, and a letter was sent to his home with great difficulty. The father finally received the news from his son. Seeing his son's steadfast attitude, he had no choice but to write a letter to ask his son to come back for his safety. In the letter, he promised to support him in going to school and give him tuition and travel expenses. Suyu jumped up for joy after reading the letter, but fearing that his father would deceive him, he returned to Huatong County, hid in the second aunt's house not far from home, and wrote again, asking his father to send the money. Suyu's father was tormented so much that he couldn't laugh or cry, so he had to send Suyu's elder brother to pick him up, and conveyed his request to allow him to study abroad. Suyu just went home. Faced with Suyu's tough attitude, his father had no choice but to compromise. He not only raised travel expenses for Suyu, broke up the arranged marriage contract, but also arranged banquets for relatives and friends to see Suyu off. 03. In 1924, Suyu arrived in Chang'an and entered Hunan Provincial Second Normal School. He liked the learning atmosphere of the school, so he studied hard. Because Chang'an is the birthplace of the Xiangxi Revolution, the revolutionary trend of thought is surging in Chang'an, and the bookish Suyu also felt the power of the new revolutionary trend of thought in school. He seemed to have found the direction of life, and he joined the youth led by our party group. From then on, his fate changed. He changed from a scholar to a revolutionary. April 12th and Made incident. Suyu felt the danger of the revolution for the first time. Later, Suyu, who escaped successfully, met Yeting and others. Under their influence, his belief in revolution became stronger. He grew from a small soldier who listened to training lessons to a general who led troops to fight. Figure Suyu. In the Battle of Chekiao, he used the hard-out tactics to kill 465 Japanese soldiers and 483 puppet troops at the cost of sacrificing 54 people and injuring 138 people. He also captured 2 flat-firing guns and other military supplies. After the battle ended, Chairman Mao prophesied with great excitement, "This soldier will command an army of 450,000 in the future." In the Battle of Central Su, facing an enemy force 4 times the size of our army, Suyu commanded the Central China Field Army to win 7 battles and 7 victories, reversing the southern front of the entire liberated area. Chairman Mao couldn't help applauding. Suyu commanded well, flexible and brave. In the Battle of Weihai, Suyu also won more with less and created a miracle. Chairman Mao excitedly praised again. Suyu made the first contribution. In the Battle of Mengliang, under Suyu's command, he wiped out the enemy's Ace Division and achieved the feat of taking the head of a general among a million troops. In the 4-year War of Liberation, our army fought a total of 134 important battles, and 23 times wiped out more than 50,000 enemies, and among these 23 times, Suyu commanded 8 times. When Chairman Mao received the British Generalissimo Montgomery, he said, "Suyu is the best at leading troops to fight." However, in these large and small battles, Suyu was wounded 6 times successively, and he narrowly escaped death. The shrapnel remained in his head, which caused him frequent headaches. Until his death, the shrapnel remained in his ashes. Whether it is military exploits or military skills, Suyu seems to be able to secure the position of Marshal. 04. During the War of Liberation, 11 people including Su Shiba, Wang Jianan, Song Rengshen, Yefei, Zhang Yiping obeyed his command. These 11 became the later generals. When Zhang Yunyi, who can stand shoulder to shoulder with Boss Su, was the commander of the army, Suyu was just an inconspicuous young general in the army. However, with Suyu's record in the anti-Japanese war and the Liberation War, his military rank was higher than that of Zhang Yunyi. In the end, he also became Suyu's subordinate. During the War of Liberation, Chairman Mao ordered the troops of Chenggang and CFUZ to obey Suyu's dispatch. In the Battle of Long Island, CFUZ, Yangyang, Suchenhua, and others were all under his command. These 3 are also in the process of being awarded the title of general. Figure 1955 Award Ceremony. When the Northeast Frontier Army was first established, the baby commanders Xiao Hua, Hong Suezi, and Xiao Jingguan, both civil and military, also obeyed Suyu's command. After the founding of New China, Suyu was appointed Chief of Staff. Wang Zhen, who was in charge of the large-scale production in Nanyuan, Deng Hua, the commander-in-chief of the volunteer army after Mr. Penn, and Han Zian-chu, known as the Whirlwind Commander, were all his subordinates. In this way, nearly half of the 57 founding generals were his subordinates. Because of this, Suyu has a high prestige in the army. Like the other 7 marshals, he is called Suzong and Su-boss. In the PLA ranks, there are only 8 commanders who have the title of Mr. X or Brother X. Zuda, Yilong, Su Xiangjian, Pen Dihue, Lin Biao, Chen Yi, Nai Rongzhen, and Suyu are all called bosses. After the list of awards and appraisals came out in 1955, Suyu, who led such a luxurious lineup, became an uncrowned marshal and was awarded the rank of general, ranking first among generals. Su Shiu expressed dissatisfaction after seeing his rank in the list. He felt that with his own ability, he should be rated as a general no matter what. Premier Zhou said, "Suyu is also a general." This comparison made Su Shiu lose his temper in an instant. His former superiors were only generals, so he had the nerve to be dissatisfied. Why was Suyu not rated as marshal? but was hailed as uncrowned marshal. Originally, Chairman Mao wanted to confer marshal to Suyu, but Suyu said, "It is enough to judge me as a general. I only think it is high, not low." Of course, there is another reason. Although Suyu made great achievements in the War of Resistance against Japan and the War of Liberation, when the country was in danger and needed good generals during the war to resist U.S. aggression and aid Korea, Suyu was unable to take command because of a headache, which made Suyu feel guilty all the time. In this way, Suyu became the number one general of the Republic, known as the uncrowned marshal. Since the beginning of the year, Western countries have been spreading their so-called China threat theory, while Taiwan's Democratic Progressive Party is also actively promoting their mainland threat theory, constantly provoking the mainland, arousing the fear of the islanders, creating a tense atmosphere, upset the people of Taiwan. In fact, the gap between the mainland and Taiwan is very large in many fields. Taiwan is just a province, and it cannot be on an equal footing with the mainland in any field, especially in terms of equipment use. The purpose of increasing the strength of the mainland is for self-defense on the one hand, and to maintain world peace on the other hand. The power of the mainland, equipped with the power to protect peace, is unshakable to Taiwan, but the DPP has always been unwilling to accept this fact. Ryukyu, the head of Taiwan's Ministry of Defense, suddenly made a bold statement, claiming that if the two sides of the Taiwan Strait go to war, every corner of Taiwan will become a battlefield, and there will be no distinction between the front line and the back line. Although Ryukyu himself is usually very sensible, this statement seems very real. In the context of increasingly tense cross-strait relations, many people speculate that if the mainland uses force to regain Taiwan, how many people in Taiwan will surrender or betray? This issue touches on Taiwan's loyalty and the position of the military. However, from China's perspective, the mainland does not need to rely on Taiwan's surrender to achieve reunification. When compared with the mainland, Taiwan's military strength exists in the explicit equipment and strength gap. Although Taiwan has certain military advantages in some specific areas, overall, Taiwan's equipment level is far inferior to that of the mainland. The mainland has continuously strengthened its own military strength, and has modern weapons and equipment and powerful military resources, which are sufficient to protect the country's security. In contrast, Taiwan's limitations and shortage of equipment make it difficult for it to compete with the mainland, let alone counter the mainland's powerful military power. 2. The mainland has strong human and resource support. Mainland China has a large population, a vast territory, and strong manpower and resources. In the event of a war across the Taiwan Strait, the mainland can mobilize the strength and support of the people of the whole country to form a strong united front. With the support of the people of the mainland, the military is sufficiently effective to advance and has sufficient rear support to keep the operation going. At this time, the mainland also has strong economic strength and technological strength, which can provide necessary material and technical support for the war. 3. The mainland has always adhered to the policy of peaceful reunification, emphasizing the peaceful settlement of the Taiwan issue. Although it is imperative for the mainland to maintain its national sovereignty and territorial integrity, the mainland has always resolved cross-strait relations through peaceful dialogue and talks. The mainland has always adopted a restrained and tolerant attitude, trying to avoid escalation without conflict, and creating conditions for the peaceful reunification of the two sides of the Taiwan Strait. Although Tsai Ing-wen and her Democratic Progressive Party have shown a firm stance in promoting separatist activities, they cannot resist the general trend of cross-strait reunification. The mainland's comprehensive national strength is constantly increasing, its economy is developing rapidly, and its international status is increasing. At the same time, the international community's support for the separation momentum has gradually weakened, and more countries have begun to recognize the One China principle. These have provided useful conditions for the actual peaceful reunification of the mainland. Therefore, it is unrealistic for Taiwan to take the lead in surrendering without waiting for the mainland to close Taiwan. Taiwan is a part of China, and the mainland has the determination and ability to maintain the unity of the country and lead the consolidation of the country. Only through a peaceful and stable approach can cross-strait relations be continuously improved and developed, bringing better development opportunities and blessings to the people of Taiwan.